Hello and welcome to Anonymous Animators. Today we are reviewing The Little Prince, a film from 2015. I'm Wesley Boone.
I'm Emily Strasser.
And I'm Maria Vasquez.
Yes, Maria is quite the fan of the film, I believe. So you were quite keen to help us review this. And
It's always so weird to say my name when I'm like, I don't know why. If I just say Maria, it's fine, but then I say Maria Vasquez.
Maria Vasquez.
So weird. Yeah.
It
almost feels like I have to do it that way.
You gotta add that Spanish soap opera.
Maria Vasquez.
Maria.
Send your Antonio Banderas.
Yeah. So you always gotta have that sing song to it.
I have more of an accent to my voice.
Well, The Little Prince, let's just get some quick little facts and figures out there just to entice those who like, trivia knowledge. First things first, things I like to know about is how much the movie cost to make, which was $77 million, right? Box office made $95 million, so at least they made their money back. Now, this isn't Disney money. We know what that means. You know, it's not like they've made double or triple their money back.
But it is the most successful French animated film abroad of all time, so that's pretty amazing.
That's actually really good.
That's great, because, look, they've probably they've been successful. I'm guessing these are the English statistics, whereas the French version probably, because the French the animation industry does pretty well for itself in France.
Right.
Same thing with the Italian industry in Italy. They don't seem to have the same problems I think North America does with its animation, where it's like if it doesn't make $1 billion, then nobody wants to put another cent into it.
Yeah.
And I think that opens up a lot more to make more imaginative films. Like
Hollywood is funny, isn't it?
Yeah, Hollywood, it's always so sad to me that they can make I get you make the pop film, the popcorn film, if you will, and you make your $250 million profit. That's great. And then use some of that money. You don't have to put all $250 million in, but just put $50 million into a pet project that somebody else wants to do or something, I think it's better for the population's zeitgeist, just our culture in general, rather than just pumping out the same old schlep all the time. Anyway, that's my controversial opinion about animation. Nobody else has that opinion.
You know what's funny about that is that...
I'm being sarcastic, of course. That's a general opinion.
Actually, speaking of that, you could probably go in that one. We're talking just about quotes. There's so many quotes that you can put from this movie. And it always talks in there about how words are all sorts of misunderstanding and how it's all about context and what you mean. And the tone and stuff. And it's always in that movie. That just makes me really funny. But I was just going to say, going back to the Hollywood thing, is when you act, it's one of those rare things where you don't really have somebody against who was born in privilege, and you have companies like Leica who, even when they don't make their money back, it doesn't matter because it's owned by this rich kid with a trust fund, and he could just keep making movies. And they're making good movies.
And it's the kid who he's the heir to Nike or something. Something really unrelated to animation. It's
Well, but that's what you want. That's the idea behind that's at the core of the idea behind, well, at least some people would maybe agree, is the idea behind capitalism is you make a shit ton of money in one regard and then you use it to make other things better. Those things that won't make a lot of money. So, bad example, space exploration. It's you would put a lot of money into space exploration from the money you'd make elsewhere. Space exploration makes us a shit ton of money, by the way. 3 to 5 times, for every dollar you put in, we get $5 back.
Yeah, NASA keeps getting cut.
It's ridiculous. Out of everything that America, the US government spends on, NASA should not be cut.
Without NASA, we wouldn't have Velcro, right?
But anyway. We're not here, this is not NASA cost, this is animating.
If you guys wanted to know, the studio is owned by Nike co-founder and chairman Phil Knight, and is basically run by Travis Knight.
This is
Leica.
This is Leica, right? Okay. This film, however, The Little Prince, firstly directed by Mark Osborne, whom I'm not really that familiar with, but I feel he did a really good job in this film. It wasn't... outside of a couple of snafus, which Maria, you pointed out last night when we were talking about it, that they kind of may have been a budget problem.
I don't necessarily think it was a budget problem. It's a lack of budget. It was just lack of organization of said budget. You know what I mean? It's I get why the funds went into the stop motion bit, because the
stop motion is expensive.
And it's gorgeous. It's so well animated and it's so well edited, and honestly, for most of that movie, it gives you such feels. I think that's the best impression to tell people.
Yeah.
It gives you the feels.
It does, because what immediately drew me to the film, like just with the ad campaign, wherever you did see it, was I've always felt strongly against the concept of growing up, because ever since I was a kid, people have always used the term "grow up" to me, like, you know, oh, just grow up, you know, because I mean I've always been, I guess, goofy or ridiculous, but.
Really?
Never have known, right? But the idea is, like, they would say that to me, and to me, that was like, oh, so growing up means not being who I am. You know, that's how I've always sort of, like, perceived it in that regard. And this film sort of touched on that a little bit, you know, like, I think, I don't know, correct me if you feel I'm wrong, but for the most part, it seems to focus on the growing up of a child, but using the concept of death. Rather than sort of growing up as a concept of, like, a consequence of just experiencing life every day. I mean, they touched on that, but I don't think that's what the end goal was. I don't know, that's what I felt like she grew up because of the implied situations, you know, like, rather than...
She grew up, but she didn't lose the sense of wonder.
Well, that's part of the whole adventure. Yeah. So it's but the, like, her growing up was different from my quote unquote growing up, and so that's what lured me into the movie. You know, just that. I don't know what got you guys interested, other than it being an animated film.
Well, I don't know if you want to go first.
Oh, just I remember I think I was mentioning to you guys this morning that my aunt bought the book for me when I was about 10, but I didn't really appreciate it until I was actually, like, in late middle school, early high school. Like, it was on my shelf, I picked it up again, and suddenly I was like, oh, I actually understand it now. Because, like, because I didn't have anyone reading it to me, so, like, when you're a kid and you're reading it by yourself, and I don't know, I didn't get it, but honestly, I think, like, anything with that overblown sense of wonder and, like, wow, beautiful world, and, like, yay, and I'm a sucker for that.
No.
That's my shallow reason to get into it.
Well, for just before Maria gets into it, just so everybody knows, the movie is not based on the book, The Little Prince, so much. It's like basically a story of the main character, the aviator, I believe, told a couple years later as he's getting older. Just to summarize, I've never read The Little Prince, so you guys would have to correct me if I'm wrong in that regard. It's just what I have understood from, like, reading other people's, like, you know, reviews. It's basically, this is not how The Little Prince is written. This is a story around the story of The Little Prince.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. Like, it's not, basically, like, what he gives her, like, the actual book, that's technically the actual book. Yeah. But it's centered around the fact of the person that wrote this particular book.
Okay.
So technically you're correct, but somehow I think you, at the beginning, said something was about...
It was about the aviator in the story.
But it was...
I don't know how the story works. It's just from what I read it's about the aviator from the story of The Little Prince. So I don't know how he plays in the book. This is something I do want to read.
Actually, you're correct. He I think he himself placed himself as the...
Yeah, I probably just worded it very odd, I'm sure.
I think The Little Prince is kind of his way of looking at the world and not really conforming overall. I think, based on what... I'm going to tell you right now, I did read the book, but my memory is not that great of the book because it's been a while. Here's the thing. It was in our syllabus when we were in school, and also little kids, and, like, it's the same as you, Emily. A lot of things just flew up my head. And then when as a grown up, I remember ordering it online in French because I was in a binge of, like, I'm going to learn French and I'm going to read it again in French. And I'm still working the kinks of trying to get past basic French. And when we moved, somehow I probably didn't even consider it twice. We donated a whole bunch of books. And I went in there, so now I have to get it again.
Yeah.
I think I have the English one. I could ask my mom to send it up to you.
That's fine. I mean, it's a really good book. Incredibly good read. And I think you can never go wrong. One of those books you can never go wrong rereading.
Yeah. You know what I mean? That's also one of those things I've been able to... I've just sort of assumed or deduced from... Everybody talks about the book. It's like, as they grow older, the book makes more sense type of thing. It's... but you can still appreciate it as a kid, maybe.
Yeah, it's such a unique situation.
Yeah, it like honestly, I was not even really aware of the book until more recently. It was not ever something in my school syllabus.
Honestly, I don't
we
think
read Lord of the Flies because that's not damaging to a kid's psyche.
Actually, yeah, we read that too, and Brave New World and so on. But anyways, what I actually like the fact that they didn't do the movie about the book, because I think what happens is, you know how everybody's like, oh, the book is always better than the movie. Well, of course it is, because when you read it, you imagine your own world, and my world is not going to be the same as yours, and it's not going to be the same as yours. So
I see where you're coming from. That's
no matter what, it's never going to be as good as the book. Also, because movies are only like 2 hours at most.
Yeah.
If you start stretching the 2 hours, people are going to be like, when is this going to end?
So in The Little Prince, is it like a fully fledged book?
I was scared
So it's not
about
like a
the
kid's
fact.
book?
I was scared about the fact that it was going to be based solely, like, it was still going to be the book, but I was really happy with the fact that it wasn't just the book made into a movie.
But what I'm asking is the book itself, like, is it a thick novel, or is it...
No, it's like, think of it like a chapter book, but for small kids, because it's like the way that I remember it, it's longer than your average picture book, but shorter than a chapter book. Like, there's illustrations in the book. So it's really easy. Like, it's in that really nice little transitional period between picture books and chapter books. Yes. This is kind of where I'd place it.
Okay. But still enjoyable, I guess, enjoyed by adults.
Yeah.
Okay, well...
Sometimes I think adults enjoy it more than... Yeah. Because I remember when my aunt gave it to me, she's like, oh, you'll love this book, it's amazing and wonderful. And I was like, I don't get it.
Thanks. So why did you get, like, excited for this particular movie? Were you any particular reason getting into it?
I like the fact that it was based on this particular book, just because it's such a, I don't even know how to call this book. It's such a unique book to me. And in the way it touches, I have yet to have found somebody that doesn't like it. They will at least recognize the quality of what it is. Yeah. And also because it's stop motion, and I'm a big stop motion fan. If it was up to me, I'd be working at Lycan or Aardman, but I'm neither American nor British, so to get to those places is really hard. So I like that. I like the idea that at first I was disappointed, but then it kind of clicked. It made sense why the real world, quote unquote, was 3D and the story world was in stop motion, just because stop motion just feels like that much more of another world.
And that's also something I really enjoyed about this film, was the collaboration between 3D, stop motion, and even 2D. There was like a lot of really nice, beautiful 2D throughout the film.
Well, the thing that I wanted to point out too is, like, for people who are complaining that the movie is not solely the book, think about what they did to pad out Horton Hears a Who. Yeah. The filler that they put in that. Yeah. You think they could have pulled that off with this film? I think like they actually did I think it was a smart choice to actually have the book just be a book in the movie, because what's important about The Little Prince isn't necessarily the story itself, but the impact it has on people's lives.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So... yeah, that's just my 2 cents.
Okay, well, just to wrap up this general information of the thing, I believe On Animations was the main studio. I remember that name appearing a lot during the credits.
Also, I will say that I actually also liked it. I was really into watching it because I really like the way French do their animation movies.
Oh, yeah.
It's a really nice in-between between these Americans, everything's for kids, everything's awesome, to like anime, Japanese and Chinese being like, we're gonna be super serious. Like they obviously they have their comedies and everything, all on their dramas, but they seem to be very polarized in their subjects, and I find that the French somehow managed to bring both into the table really well. Like, I don't know if you've seen Ernest and Celestine.
Yes, I love that film.
Kids and adults can equally enjoy it, or like Let Tableau.
See, this is how we know Maria doesn't listen to our podcasts, because we reviewed Ernest and Celestine.
Oh, hey, I listened to a lot of it, not all of it. I will say that. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay. Well, I'll just give a quick list of the studios or the production companies that worked on it.
One more thing I wanted to point out about this film too was that actually something really weird happened with the IP of this. Originally, it was owned by Paramount Pictures, right? And they were like, "Oh, it's movie's gonna come out in like a week," and then they dropped it. like straight out of the blue, no word of why, and everyone's like, something terrible must have happened.
Yeah.
It must have, like, you don't drop a film a week before its release. Luckily, it did get picked up by Netflix, so hopefully after it's had its run in theaters, it should come to Netflix fairly soon.
Okay.
So,
That's
but...
great. Yeah. So, I'll put it that way. Any of you who haven't, I guess, watched it yet, it's on Netflix, hopefully.
No, not yet.
Not
No,
yet,
well,
it will be.
not yet at the time of this recording,
I
but...
was lucky that it got released in a few theaters, and I just happened to look it up, and it was like that one that wouldn't.
It was like a tiny window.
But it was a very tiny window,
Yeah.
yes. And I just recently actually was listening to your Kung Fu Panda 2 review, so I do listen to it.
Thank you, Maria.
Anyway, quick rundown of the production companies involved. We've got the Paramount Animation, Kaibu Productions, LPP TV, I don't know who that is, M6 Films, there's quite a few here, Micros Image Canada, National Acclaim, On Animation Studio, which is the studio that I remember seeing all the time. I was actually confused by the logo because it looked kind of like a weird, I thought it was either CN or like an infinity attempt. I don't know, it was such a weird logo. I was like, okay. Orange Studio, Onyx Entertainment, 210 Cartoon Canada, and Wild Bunch, if that means anything to anybody. So, yes. Okay, so now we're going to talk about our impressions of the film. I guess just general discussion all around. I'll start. Going into the film, I loved it immediately because it was very beautifully. Everything was beautifully rendered. Because that's a big problem I have with a lot of animation coming from South Africa, is there's this weird rendering to it, or like maybe even from South America. I don't know if you like, sometimes like films from Brazil have this weird render,
like a filter?
or I don't know what it is. Like it just doesn't look as polished as, say, like a Disney or a Pixar film.
I've seen...
It could be a budget thing too, right? And
Sure.
it could
I mean,
be a
and
lack
rendering
of-
is expensive. It's not cheap to do.
And
I've seen that one film, the South African film about the zebra. I forgot what it's called.
I'm not sure.
I told you about it and you were like...
Oh, I hadn't seen it yet.
Yeah.
So.
No, it's going to drive me crazy.
Okay, well, anyway. But anyway, to put it to this film, The Little Prince, it looked really good. It looked, you could tell people it was a Pixar film and they'd probably believe you.
for the most part, I think, somebody without an artistic eye would probably.
Yeah, like
Say Disney or Disney, DreamWorks or Pixar, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, that was Little Prince was one of those, right?" And they're like,
most likely, yeah, or at the very least, like if they ever like had like a Disney Pixar, indie film group type of thing, like because every now and then, like the mom, for example, had that Disney / Pixar mouth, like that I don't know how to explain. It's just the Pixar mouth where like they smile like that, and
Oh yeah, that.
and I'm like, okay, and I guess is that just how animation is now? Like this is the smile we have.
But I will say I love their acting nuances. I find they're a lot better.
The acting
than,
was fantastic. Yeah.
As I mentioned-
almost like Pixar has fallen into this formula as it needs to be like this and like this and like, you know what I mean, and it felt more organic from the Little Prince for the most part.
There was, in regards to the acting, look, kudos to everybody involved. The animation acting is really, really good. There was like right in the beginning of the film, and again, this probably comes to the possible budget allocations.
Yes.
Right in the beginning of the film, and Emily agreed with me while we were watching, it felt really odd. At first we thought it was maybe the rendering or just the animation in general, but it wasn't. It was definitely the way the movie was cut up. It had like a really weird timing.
Well, I think I said it was very like evenly textured. Like it was just like, wait.
Here's the thing is resolved. Here's the thing is resolved.
Yeah.
Here's there was no sort of enough cutting or establishing or letting a character breathe, as you would say.
I wonder though, like I remember you saying that, and I do agree with that to a degree, but I also was thinking about it, and I wonder if maybe the beginning, at least, might have been to a degree on purpose, because the beginning is so awkward with everything that happens, right?
That's an interesting point.
You know what I mean? Like the whole situation, all the build up, all the pressure, and then the how. I don't know if we're allowed to like.
Well, not yet. We'll get to the spoiler discussion later, but basically just first opinions, and I get where you're coming from. Like, so just to sort of set the pace of. Not necessarily set the pace of the movie, but just to get to the bulk of the movie, which is the middle. It's the girl and her interaction with the old man. That's the movie. Everything before and after which they both felt the same, like are chopped up, like, oh, let's just finish this up, or let's just get this going.
No, but the beginning, I mean, it's like it felt awkward because the whole situation was awkward. When you think about it. The whole sequence, beginning sequence, as the complete.
No, but
it's supposed to be.
I don't know, but see, I didn't feel awkward. It just, like I wasn't like, ooh, I felt bad or awkward for the girl, like except for where you needed to, like her freaking out or whatever. But what I mean is, it's like the cutting of the show. It was. It felt. I mean, see, I want to use the word awkward too, but it's not awkward as in I'm feeling awkward.
You're feeling awkward. It's just.
I'm like, oh, why is this happening?
Editing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to. Like my brain is trying to attach to, like you use like American and Japanese films as an example, whereas like an American film is like, they explain everything and they get it out there, but at least you understand, I guess, what's, they give you the information that you need for the most part for a good film, whereas in a Japanese film, they'll introduce you to this entire landscape and you'll sit there for 2.5 hours like, what's happening? Am I just watching art move across the screen? Like, that's what sometimes happens. So, that's where, again, I agree with you on that, is that this movie was like, here's some information, and now let's slow down and enjoy what's happening. And I think that's what they wanted to do. It just felt weird because I'm not used to it. How's that?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think that also makes me wonder how maybe they just didn't have the most experienced people when it came to lighting and rendering.
I was thinking that too.
Because the parts were supposed to be dark. They're so... I'll put it to you this way. I was able to forgive the beginning because it's the beginning. You're still kind of trying to figure out how things... And as things progressing, I have this, like... even, like, increasing amount of, like, emotion and feels. And it's funny thing, actually, it was only 4 people in the theater when we went to see it. Unfortunate. It was unfortunate.
It's one of those.
But
again, it had a very small window, and I guess that's why it had a small window.
And it was only the 4 of us, and we went to see it like a really late show too. So it's really rare for animation movies too. And all 4 of us were like,
oh no.
Me and Jolie to the 2 people in the back, and I think at first we were all being really self-conscious and Mitchell were like, fuck this. We're like just like crying our eyes out. And so it's like this exponential, like emotional state of being, and you're enjoying this movie. And then it hits this point when it's trying to resolve itself towards the end, where there's another bit of that's supposed to happen in the dark. And that's where like my emotional connection quickly fell out, because I'm like, what is happening? Like it almost feels like they ran out of budget, like they didn't have enough experienced people. It wasn't animated as well. It was cut awkwardly at that point, just like you're saying. So it went from like, oh my god, like what, like what is this?
Yeah.
And I think that I'm wondering if that's just me as a creative and know how it gets done, or it's just that was really that's essentially right at the part where they ran out of money. And also because maybe they just didn't quite know how to resolve it. And they just took too long. It's almost like it took too long, and then it was like, went from taking too long to being like, okay, and this is how we resolve it and it's done. Yeah.
It's quite possible. I don't know how you feel about it.
The lighting definitely, like, now that I think about it, it did kind of feel like, it felt like a student film lighting, you know, like they kind of know what they're doing, but they're not quite...
Like we know the theory, but we haven't had as much practice.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it succeeds in what it's trying to do, but it feels clunky. But then again, like rendering is a very expensive process.
And it's an art in its own. Getting the right lighting and just getting the right feel throughout. Which if you take away sort of our understanding of it, I think the layman will watch it, like a kid will watch. Like, I don't even know, even though, like, how good this film would do with kids, though. Because it is kind of long, and it doesn't have, like, I mean, there's some fun parts, but it's a story. There's no little goofy sidekick character, except for that fox, I guess, but it's not
Fox
really
was the
goofy.
best.
But well, you could say the grandpa, and it's his own character.
But again, like he was still grounded in a reality. You know what I mean? Like, again, I'm looking at this from like a Western... like an North American Western understanding of film, and what sort of captivates an audience and how people make their money. And that's probably part of why Paramount would drop something like this. They're like, oh, there's no sales in product after this. Like we're not going to be selling the Little Prince books after this type of thing, I would imagine.
Oh well, yeah, I could see that, but the reality is that I think that if people were people take their kids to Wall-E, I really don't see how they can take their kids to this particular film because Wall-E was a very existential movie, I suppose.
Yeah, it was.
It was an environmental film.
Yeah,
It was not so much existential as much
Well,
as
it does
was.
question our place.
True.
But you know what I mean? It wasn't the typical, like, oh, there's this story about this underdog. It was an underdog, but not in the same way.
But can you really say Wall-E is, say, as successful as, say, Lilo and Stitch? You know, I mean, sure, everybody loves...
That's a really bad comparison because I would say they're actually in part of
I was
our
going to
success.
say, yeah.
Because Lilo and Stitch wasn't as successful, even though I actually love Lilo and Stitch.
Lilo and Stitch was made into an anime, I think that says about...
An anime?
Yeah, they actually made like a Stitch anime where apparently Lilo abandons Stitch and he finds another girl that's Lilo but Japanese. Like, I'm not kidding, this is a thing.
I need to see this. I love it when you find...
this.
Yeah, I love it when you find, like, weird anime crossovers. And it's, like, the Powerpuff Girls anime.
Oh, God.
Like, what was that all about?
I don't know.
Oh, Joel showed me the Deadpool crossover.
What?
It's hilarious.
It's hilarious.
It's so funny. Oh my god, it's totally hilarious. No, but it's actually really funny. It is really funny.
But okay, so what I mean is like I mean look, yeah, so you can still get Wall-E, I guess, like a mug or something, and I don't know what I'm trying to talk. I'm talking
easily make the figurines or like the fox plot, the plushie of the fox.
I would love the plushie.
Oh, yeah, heck yeah.
Yeah, no.
I want a plushie of the fox.
I mean, and make it little and make it
petition to make plushie of the fox.
I should make those for Minikami maybe.
Oh man, you guys, brain juices are flowing. If you want to buy one of Emily's designs, go to Redbubbles and
You told me design for like you know
make a t-shirt design.
Yeah, t-shirt design.
Good. Okay, Maria's nodding at me and I'm just...
Dude, it's like
Whatever.
it's free market, right? So I signed up for Minikami and I'm still trying to figure out what I'm gonna put out there for people to...
Well, you can always put the post on at the end of the show.
Buy a button machine. Those things sell like crazy.
Oh, yes. That's true.
I remember
those little pin buttons.
Yeah, I know what a button is.
You know, badges.
No, I was like button. Like, I like just wanted to say the word but. Okay, geez, then we have this. Okay, so any other sort of opinions of the movie from first-hand experience?
Overall, I loved it.
As an animator, you know?
Overall, I loved it. I loved the subtle little gestures that, especially the old man had. I feel like the old man...
His eyebrows were very,
yes.
Like, what's the word I'm looking
Expressive?
for? Expressive, yeah. Like, they were very... You know, they used that so much. That's also what I love about this film is, like, with him especially, the old man had such a great everything about him.
Yeah.
I didn't like the little girl's design so much. She was just generic girl. Like, she had some buck teeth, I guess.
It's really hard to, honestly, it's really hard to find out.
But I mean, you look at the old man and he's great. Like,
we're right, but he's an old man. We're more forgiving with the old man, even if at some point he looks ugly. That we're actually gonna move into a whole another social thing that I'm probably gonna cut short. But I'm just saying.
Fair enough.
Overall, when it comes to females, little girls, we're very limited by the fact that we're supposed to look in a very pretty way.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Even when they're ugly, they're supposed to be pretty ugly. It's retarded, but it's...
Oh yeah,
I've seen
enough
you got
TV
ugly
movies
and you got TV ugly.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. There we go.
like TV ugly is like the standard for most people.
I mean,
it's like, God, if I could just look TV ugly.
Well, I mean, it's like, I mean, even TV ugly. Like in Family Guy, like Meg, who's supposed to be like this horrendous pig beast, and
I know it's like, and she's like such a.
She looks like any other character in the show.
Like, she's such a plain Jane though, like so unremarkable. But
though that's probably part of the joke, maybe.
No, I don't think Seth MacFarlane is that smart.
Well, anyway, so any other opinions?
I'm glad you laughed.
No, I really enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it overall. I mean, despite its shortcomings, I still recommend it to people to watch it.
Oh, for sure.
So the fact that the movie was able to do that despite all shortcomings that I could find, it could still be like, you still need to go see it.
Yeah.
Because it does give you, it's really rare that a movie can give you so many emotions within such a short amount of time.
Oh,
in this movie, you laugh with it, you cry with it, you're like, like, like open your eyes, mind, like, like, I don't even know how to describe it.
Yeah.
But it gives you so many emotions within a short amount of time. And I mean, even confusion, like some things at the end were oddly confusing me, but I'll even take that, right? Even in the bad parts, I was still engaged.
I'll explain my opinion of what happened to the end in the spoiler section, but Still, it's worth saying. Definitely go watch it,
Yes.
especially if you are a child or child at heart, like we are.
Or even if you're an
actually
adult
think
who's
it-
slowly losing
Yeah,
that,
I think
maybe
even
go watch
adults
it.
will
It'll spark something.
they might not appreciate it as much, but I think they'll enjoy it if they come in with an open mind. I find that a lot of times I think a lot of times what happens as adults, we come in with our mind made up. You know what I mean?
Well,
I've seen it
the
a
mind
lot.
may be made up being it's a kid, it's a cartoon.
Yeah.
I'm just here to watch it with my kid.
Yeah.
Well, I think that it keeps to the tradition of the Little Prince, wherein a kid can watch it and enjoy it, but then they'll watch it like once they're older, and then they're like, I get it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, in 10, 20 years' time, when kids are going, remember the 2010s? Like, you know, we'll probably see a bunch of, the Little Prince changed my life.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you guys saw that meme that was good. Like meme.
Meme.
No. I keep wanting to call it meme, and there was meme.
I know why you, yeah.
But Mimi sounds so much cuter. Mimi. It's going around like if you see this image and you think it's a hat, then you didn't have a proper childhood or something like that.
Oh wait, I get it.
Well, if you want to know what that is, you'll have to listen to the spoiler section, which is now coming up. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the film in a little bit more detail. So spoiler warnings ahead from here on. Yeah, I guess we're going to talk about the film in a bit more depth. Let's start off right from the beginning. The story follows a little girl who, I guess, is forced to grow up, and the whole concept of this
It's supposed
this
to be
world.
a grown up already.
Yeah, she's like what, 10 years old,
yeah.
to 19 years old, and the mom wants to get her into this prestigious school. And in order to get into the school, pretty much and this is very telling of modern Western everything, is like how everybody just has to be immediately the best that they're going into. You know, like I remember coming to animation school here in Canada, and like being worried because I didn't really know anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one of the first things the teacher said to me, and this like really resonated with me, and I was like, okay, I relaxed a lot, but it was like, look, you're not here to be the best animator already. That's what we're going to train you to be. You don't know anything, and that's fine not to know. And that would have been so helpful in school, you know. Whereas in school, like they just like in this movie, they definitely pound that in.
Yeah.
You know, she has to like know so many books. She has to know like high school level mathematics going into this. You know that's
Jeez,
what they.
some of that stuff I didn't even see till college. I was like,
Yeah.
ugh.
Yeah, you know, but that's a truth. That's based off like some serious truth, though.
And I should also add, probably it's good to mention that it's not only that she's trying to make sure that she has this amazing future in all these things.
Mm-hmm.
It's that she's also a single mom.
Mm-hmm.
So because she's a single mom and she's trying to make her she has basically made her into a mini grown up already, so that while she's at work, she can actually achieve these situations on her own.
Yeah.
Like their relationship at the beginning is not necessarily that one of a mom and a kid per se.
Yeah.
It's more like it's more on a level playing
It's
field.
mini me.
Yeah, it's like mini me.
Well, what's her
and
pet
then,
name to the kid, right? You're my senior VP.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's not a pet name
Yeah.
you'd really use outside of a corporation type of
Yeah, the way they
situation.
talk is very level playing field. It's not what you would imagine.
Yeah, yeah.
Mom.
The kid is definitely treated more along the line of either an employee or somebody who is helping running a business.
Yes, and then
versus...
like the executive assistant.
Yeah, pretty much. And that's, again, like, fine, single mom definitely comes into play into this whole situation. But that's also very telling, like, of how a lot of parents, like, just expect so much of a child and they forget to let that child
Be
an adult. Yeah, be a child. And that's exactly how this movie starts off. And this is where I was, like, pointing out, like, about the cuts, because there was just so much, I guess, information that they wanted to get across to get into because it slows down quite heavily in the middle of the film. You know, I mean, her interaction with the aviator, if you will, and just her deception with her mom, like learning about the book, that went along a lot slower, and I enjoyed that a heck of a lot more. I enjoyed the middle of the film the most. It's from what I can tell is what you did too. And yeah, I don't know. Oh, there was this one bit of animation towards the end of the film, and I think I was just something I was looking for trouble. So, because we rewatched it at that particular bit, but there's a scene where she's angry at the old guy and she like throws the fox at him and then she like runs away, grabs her case and leaves.
Right.
And the running arc for it was this very smooth, like everything up to that point had been relatively realistic in that world. But then she ran to go get her suitcase and run away, and it was this like
Floaty.
yeah, this floaty arc where like there was no like her pushing down as she's running. It's just like I'm gonna grab my chair and my bag and go. It's like you know, like she was like floating away, and I'm like. And I was like, Emily, what just happened? You know, she's like, no. And then what did you say? You were like, oh, this is what happens when you watch animation with an animator.
I was being facetious.
No, for sure, because I mean, you're an animator too.
Yeah.
Oh no, Joel does the same thing, and I think people find it odd that I don't do it, and I'm just like, I used to do it, and I drive myself crazy.
Yeah, like, I mean, geez, anytime I'm watching cartoons, and I've done it with, everything we watch, and I'll just catch like a weird, like an arm flip because of a rig going weird or something.
It's so weird how, like, when I first watch something, I watch it to watch it. The second time I watch it, I'm looking for animation. But the first time, it's like, no, I just want to watch the thing.
Yeah, but my brain's not letting me. It's like, I see it in the corner of my eye. It's like my peripherals are, like, this is like a weird thing to say, but my peripheral vision is like really crazy good. Because I thought it was just a thing that everybody had, but then my uncle was like, oh yeah, no, all Boone men have that. And I'm like, okay. I've never pushed on it, but he was like, yeah, no, like everybody in my family like has this crazy good peripheral vision. And explaining it to like other people, they're like, oh no, I don't see that at all. And I'm like seeing stuff all over, and so I'm always like, you know, jittery squirrel style.
I can see that. I've seen some people be like that. I mean, it's not, and then there's just people who like nothing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They're completely the opposite. But
Me.
on that regard, I also probably would say animation also ruins it for you in regards of story. Perhaps not in
That's
this
writing
movie
for
too
me.
much. Yeah. But like you start looking at an episode or at a movie and you're immediately like, I know who the bad guy is.
Oh, Emily.
Like, I know what's gonna happen.
Well, that's
now.
just because you've consumed so much media.
True, but I'm also.
No, but we study story a lot.
Yeah,
we
we
see
have
it all
to.
the time. We are looking at these storyboards constantly. So a lot of times you're like, God damn, I know what's gonna happen.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how many times like in the movie, like I know once for you I've done. I'm like Emily, I can tell you what the ending's gonna be, or you know, and it's just I don't know. Yeah, it's frustrating, but at the same time, I mean, I'll still consume it and enjoy it because.
Yeah, I can't remember what I was watching.
I mean, like this movie, I said right at the beginning, I bet you the old man dies. Like right in the beginning of the film, I'm like
not even pretty much when we were introduced to him, he was like, he's gonna
Yeah.
die. I'm like, damn it, Wesley, I just want to watch the movie.
yeah, can I just have some good feels for a moment? I'm like, no.
No, I get it. It sucks. It's this like blessing and curse at the same time. It's weird. But yeah, this movie, in regards to that, I also wanted to, going back to the whole the kid being so indoctrinated into basically being this mini adult, is like, it's also a representation of how much we push into the kids and to not question it and to only do academically, because that's what will get you in a good future and yada yada yada. Is that she's so indoctrinated that you see at the beginning in her interview that she's so like into like so much has been pushed into her mind that even that then when they show that they changed the question, she doesn't even think about it. The fact that she didn't even question that, she just answered the wrong thing that they had practiced over and over and over. And I think this also comes to our representation of what happens today. It's like, you should just go to school and just learn and don't question anything and just keep moving.
Yeah, it's not about like critical thinking or about you know like there's another word for it, but like basically it's thinking that evolves. You know, like you're being brought into a situation and the situation could be kind of the same. Like I mean, being a doctor, for example, you can't just study like this one way of doing things. Like you have to be prepared for something crazy that happens. You know, and to bring that type of thinking and attitude to kids is I think just as important, because you want like even if they just end up being kids working at like a McDonald's or something, like you want them to think for themselves.
Yeah.
You don't want them to just drone on,
Especially if you live in a democracy. I mean, think about it. These kids are going to vote. you don't want them to have critical thinking. That's stupid.
Yeah, it's
plus, you say it in a way, like for instance with McDonald's workers, even in the worst case scenario, you teach somebody to be critical thinking, they might start up there, but if you have that, and their critical thinking, and if their way of thinking for themselves, propelling themselves forward one way or another, that doesn't mean they'll find themselves, they'll find their own way moving forward. I think a lot of people I think we have this big construct about like how things are supposed to be in order to be successful, and a lot of the times, I've heard of people who purposely work at these low end like not like jobs that are beneath most people, but they also live a lifestyle that does not require them to make much money, and they only make enough money in order to travel. And then you think about it, that is in a way of really being truly free. Being able to just pick up whenever you want and go and experience whatever you want. Right? So and in the end, that is this person's success. And because this person was okay with not being the norm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely critical thinking should be encouraged.
Just as a side note, I remember so like I went back home to the States for Christmas, and I remember when I was coming back into Canada, there was this young Border Patrol guy, and he's like, checking my passport and everything, and he's like, oh cool, what do you do? I was like, I work here, and he's like, oh cool, what do you do? I'm like, I'm an animator, and then we just get in this little conversation about, he's like, oh man, I guess I could have done like music or something, and I'm like, that doesn't. I was like, listen, you're doing a very important job. Like the most important thing is that you make enough money that you're happy, and that your situation is happy. And he's like, yeah, I guess it is.
And at the end of the day, it's not like it's too late or like he can't do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He can still work and do music.
Yeah, he was a young guy. He was like no older than maybe 32.
Oh, there you go.
It's easier as a kid, sure, to do anything. Your brain is just absorbing stuff at such a crazy rate. But it's not like you get to a certain age, like it's not like you get to 20 and you're like, no, I can't learn anymore. You just don't learn as easily.
I remember I went through a huge existential crisis at the age of 20. Like, I actually, like, I remember being in that period of my life and just being super depressed because I thought my life was over. It was like, I'm in college, I hate it, I hate everything about my life. This is my life. I am just going to be super sad forever.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad I was wrong. But yeah, no, like I know I've seen a lot of posts because there's sort of a change. There's a cultural shift happening, whereas it was possible for like our parents and our parents' parents to get like married and have a house and have kids and just have everything set. Like everything is set by the age of 25, but that isn't possible anymore. Not really, not in this economy, not with this kind of like, not with this real estate price, not with the wages that they are now.
And even then, you really have to think about how much was, whether there was just easy and they did that, or how many of these people did it because they thought that that's what they were supposed to do.
Well, that's the other thing. Yeah, that's the other thing too. Like, I know people who, they say that, yeah, I only really did this because I needed to make money, and it was a miserable experience for me. So I kind of wish I could have gone back and done the thing that I wish I did in the first place.
Yeah. Speaking of, because I was trying to find that quote that I was never able to find, but there's one quote of what we're talking about, where it's from The Little Prince. It says, "No one is ever satisfied with where he is." So.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this film has like a lot of like amazing quotes.
Oh yeah.
That just like make you like think for a second. You're like, yeah. And I mean it's filled with just metaphors left and right, Oh, yeah. I mean, I guess the idea of the little... I can't... I haven't figured them all out yet. I probably need to watch the film another time just to be like...
You need to read the book.
Yeah, or maybe even the book would probably be a lot better use of figuring out the metaphors.
Let's go to the library.
Yeah.
But, what you were saying with the movie, I think kids would still enjoy it because at the end of the day, the old man is such a interesting character, and it's really comedic too. Like when it's like, oh, I keep a sandwich in my pocket, or when he like just passes out, and he's like, oh, it'll pass, it's okay. Or like when he goes driving for ice cream.
Yeah.
My favorite part with him was when you first get introduced to him, when he opens the door and he's got a monocle on, and he's like, what were you doing? He's like, I was playing bridge. Like, I love the idea that, like, as an adult, he doesn't quite know what adults do, so he just, like, makes it up.
Yeah.
Like the three kids in a trench coat in BoJack Horseman.
Yes!
I went to workplace. It's like, oh, yes, I know you were doing job at workplace. I get it.
Yeah.
and that's what I liked. And this is also the thing that I appreciated a lot from the film, is, like, where... The mom was like, say, super serious adult and had become like hardcore adult serious, and the old man had never become an adult. He had remained a child at heart, at least the way he had seen it. But the little girl, considering what happened at the end, like and after her trip to the business world and everything, her coming back she was a mixture of both.
Yeah.
She was obviously now she had matured, but she was still a child, and she was still going to be creative and you know, like I mean, one of my mom's favorite quotes that she loves to send to me every now and then is. An artist is an adult that hasn't forgotten how to be a child, you know. And
boy, can I attest to that.
you know, and that's like where this film I think sort of captures that essence, you know, that. But anyway, sorry. Let's get back to sort of chopping up the film a little bit more. So after the rush that was the introduction of all the characters and setting up the girl's life plan. We get this part where her and the old man are now becoming friends. You know, like she's now interested in his story, and like and there not only is it like very well told, you know, because it's not like everything is shown again. Like this is one of those classic show don't tell things, and they show the relationship between the two. It's not like
and that's when they start delving into like the stop motion and the story itself, and stuff. And
so anytime they would talk about the little prince, it goes into the stop motion, and then whenever it's any like real life,
it's in 3D. And actually, I really like that the whole like, you know, it's part of the book stuff like with the little prince and the rose. And how it really tied into him, and technically he's the pilot, but at the same time how he felt about somebody. You know what I mean. I mean, I might be wrong, but that's kind of how it came across to me.
It was look. Obviously, the rose was a love interest. And I'm sad we never got to find out who the love interest is or wasn't intended to be. But I guess
don't think you're really supposed to. I think it's just.
It's just his life had happened while life moved on while he moved away type of thing. So he obviously went to go be. Because again, it's like is the aviator supposed to be then the little prince, or is you know, like is the little prince supposed to be his child, his inner child? You know what I mean? Like, and then because I mean, then he talks to him, but then the prince and him are different people.
I don't think so. It didn't really come off that way to me.
Well, that's the way at this point that's the way I understood it. I was like, okay, so the little prince is his childhood, and. You know, like, I don't, but then that doesn't make sense with the whole ending sequence of him dying and you getting the prince back. Who was the little prince then supposed to be? Like, what is the metaphor for the little prince?
I think it's just really I think it's just about like the child in all of us. You know what I mean? Because he stresses about the fact that no matter what, you should still look at certain things like you would a child. So he'd probably be like the ultimate representation of that. Like how he goes to all these worlds and he questions all the worlds really well, but still with the innocence of a child, isn't like, why would you do this? Why would you do that? And like how it was so silly. As a grown up, you'd be like, well, of course, you do it this way, and the kid's like, why?
Yeah, and then when they beat the why out of you, then that's when you become an adult.
Exactly.
My favorite character, by the way, when he's busy traveling to the different planets, and I loved him traveling to the different planets, and I wish they could have done a bit more with those characters. Is the king, the conceited man, and the who's the other one? Oh, the businessman?
Yeah.
Like, I wish they could have done more with them, because they kind of just introduce them and they leave them, and then they kind of come in later, but not really importantly. You know, it's like, if you had left the king out, and you left the conceited man out, maybe not so much the conceited man, but you could have left the king out. Like, there was literally no reason for him to be there. You know, like...
it was kind of like showing, like... It's the book's own way of showing the silliness of how the world works.
Sure, the book, but in the movie, it like, and especially somebody who hasn't read the book, I'm like, I don't understand. Who was the king? Why? Like, what was he supposed to represent? So if the prince represents the childlike wonder, then what is the king? Like, I mean, obviously they're different adults. The businessman is just the adult trying to make money to make sure that they have more of the things, so they can get more money, so they can buy more of the things. I get that, and the conceited man is like. To me at least, was the idea of adulthood, like, oh, they just want to be praised for being adults, like they don't contribute. It's like, why aren't you appreciating me? I'm the adult. And I get that, because I've experienced that thousands of, like, even to this day I experience that. But I don't get the king. Like, the king is like, I control all the stars, and they're like, show me how, and it's like, maybe later type of thing.
It's that false sense of power and entitlement, right?
Again,
like how, like a lot of the times when you think about it, for the longest time, people worship kings and queens for what? For just being born under than the previous king and queen. And
so it's more of a unquestioning authority.
Yeah, I would think so. It's like why exactly was that the case? Like you say you have power, but you don't really. You just have this illusion of power. So I think that's kind of what it developed. That maybe they didn't quite go into it as well as they could have. That's probably the case.
Yeah, I would have just liked to have seen more done with those three characters at the very least. I like the conceited man though, because I love the idea of just anybody clapping and then he's like, oh yes, thank you, you know. And I didn't immediately recognize his voice. Like I was like, I know his voice. Who is this? And then I had to go into IMDb and it's Ricky Gervais, and I'm like, Ricky Gervais.
I recently recognized it because I had just read that he hosted the Golden Globes again.
Yeah.
Or something. And I was making fun of him because whenever he laughs or he smiles, he kind of looks like he's constipated to me. And I'm really sorry if you ever Ricky Gervais for whatever reason ever listens to this podcast.
I love Ricky Gervais. I do think he's a smart guy, and I do enjoy his comedy. But I do think he's a bit of an asshole.
Oh yes.
So I mean, I'm really happy.
When he smiles, he's really doesn't that give you the
shit-eating grin is the word.
Yeah. So I think that's why I recognize it right away.
So he was like my favorite out of the adulthood characters. But yeah, the businessman and his lackeys. Well, anyway, so after the two become friends, it's then starts to be implied that he's going to leave later, and he kind of lets it slip that he's going to die, but she doesn't quite understand the way he's implying it. So he's like, no, I'm leaving, and then she takes it as him leaving because obviously Dad left,
and he's fixing his plane and stuff like that.
Yeah, and then but then they have their falling out. Then she's like, I guess in the dark mood, the rain happens, and this is also the starts where the thing starts speeding up again, right?
Yeah.
Because I guess they're like, oh crap, we've only got like 30 minutes left to do what we want to do. So they get through all that, and then.
Before you get into that, though, I will say I don't know about people who enjoy the book, but with certain bits and pieces of the movie where you remember the book and you're like, nostalgia. Like when he's like, if you please draw me a sheep, and you're like when he's talking about like, oh, we can't be friends, I'm not tamed, with the fox, and you're just you're remembering the book and you're just like.
See now I wish I'd read the book because I just love that whole fox sequence where he tamed the fox and became best friends.
Yeah.
And then and to me they're like that's growing up, finding a best friend. Not necessarily like in a fox, because not like human beings are wild and untamed for the most part. But yeah, like that whole creating a best friend, going through a lot, and then having to go back to another world. That was really well. But anyway, basically, what I wanted to talk about is the sequence where she activates the plane and gets it going. That whole sequence, I love. Just the whole what do you call it, Rube Goldberg machine of just activating the plane and then setting it off. I'm guessing also the idea there is she fell asleep or.
Probably got knocked out because
she fell off out of the windowsill, right? And
it was like she was like trying to climb down the gutter and it like broke off the house.
Because definitely between there and then the next morning, like that, the whole adventure of her traveling to business town to look for the prince and find out that he has grown up, but taking him and then getting his wonder back. But again, see, this is the part that I don't get. Again, is that metaphor. I get the whole metaphor of the business world is the metaphor of growing up and everybody, and then her personal anxieties of, just trying to push her through, and then she has to understand that she needs to remain a child. But I just don't get why it happened.
I do. Okay. I have a theory behind why it happened. Okay. So pretty up until that point, we are following the story of the little prince through the author, the aviator's eyes, right? So my thinking is that this is her story. It's essentially
this already. Yeah.
Think of it as like a fan fiction. She has taken she's taken the characters and now she is understanding the story of the little prince. But this is how she's interpreting using these characters to get through her personal anxieties.
Yeah. Okay. No, that makes sense to me. At least from that explanation.
It's also why, like, because when I first saw the little prince all grown up, he was so odd to me. Like, I was like, kind of like the design. I don't like anything about him. But then at the same time, I don't think you were supposed to. I think he was supposed to be this oddity because he was like, you're a little prince, you're not supposed to be this adult, but at the same time you can see that he just can't conform completely to this adulthood, no matter how hard they try to like basically shoved in his head that he had to be this charm. You know what I mean? He was never able to really fit in.
But there was definitely a lot of like opposites from like young prince to old prince. Whereas young prince was full of confidence and just wanted to travel the world and know everything and experience and just and get back to his rose. Old prince, firstly, didn't even remember his rose. Was a lot more. He was very unconfident in his stride and his just being doing his stuff.
But they still weren't able to completely. They broke him, but not entirely. That's my point.
Okay.
Like he was unconfident and stuff, but at the same time, he still couldn't fit into the area where everybody else was able to be broken and fit it into. Mm-hmm. So I guess that's my point. But plus, I think that's the other point of the story that I was a little bit not that happy about is that. When he's slowly kind of coming back to himself and standing up to the businessman, I don't think that was actually done quite well. Like the sequence or the acting.
It did kind of feel very American, if that makes sense.
To me, what it was like it felt like very secondary to what was happening.
Yeah.
Like everything that was happening was happening because the girl was like pushing it along, and she was like sort of come here, do this. Here, come here, do this. Come here, do this. She's like she's like she's basically pulling the prince's strings, and then like everything he was doing was like that secondary thing. It was like if it didn't happen, it didn't matter. Like she knew what was right from the get-go. And then that's probably, I think, then where the story flips from the show don't tell to now it's kind of just telling.
Well, that's what I mean, where it kind of felt American, where it's like we gotta have a goofy ending sequence.
But that being said, it was a beautiful sequence. Like the whole, like her landing on the planet from the plane. The opening of the stars was beautiful.
I was just about to say that was
the opening of the stars. Yeah, but that in between, that warehouse bit. That's where I was like very put off by the fact that it was. You could tell that it was either they ran out of money or they just didn't. Know what
or maybe that lost. Like maybe the intro. Maybe each sequence was done by like a different.
Yeah, maybe different studio.
It kind of almost feels like it was a different movie. Like just that whole thing just kind of felt a little bit out of place, which I can understand. Like. Despite my explanation,
it would have made a good short film. Let's put it that way.
I was thinking the same thing. Like, despite my explanation, I can understand why people are kind of put off by it. But I don't know. I think with that explanation, it at least helps to
understand it better and kind of make it more cohesive. I think. Yeah, probably be the best word to use. Yeah. But other than that, like once she comes back to and she goes to the hospital and everything, it's just. You go back into that it feels.
It ends well. I mean, there's no like funeral or anything. It is implied. Like, I mean, he's obviously moving on, and she's I guess forgiven him, and everything's fine. And it's like I guess there's peace in the film because then it like ends with because there's a quote in the film where it's like when I look up at the stars, I can hear the little prince laughing. And that's how the movie ends, right? You hear the little prince laughing and the old man laughing. So naturally.
I will say I didn't like how the little prince at the end when he was shown as a kid, he was shown as a kid in 3D.
Oh yeah.
To me, he should have been shown back into the stop motion.
Yeah.
I was kind of hoping the little girl would have been in stop motion.
Yeah. But they both were in 3D.
Yeah.
At the end, you're like, why?
Yeah, and then again, his design didn't look very lackluster. I'm like, okay. I didn't even know it was him for a second. I was like, wait, what? Oh, okay, it's the prince. Like, who's this kid?
Doesn't help that he was voiced by Paul Rudd, which I love, but every time I hear Paul Rudd, I always think poo gas. If you don't understand the reference, he was the voice of Freakazoid, and that was like the most infamous episode of Freakazoid is when he goes down into the sewers and he says poo gas like 3 times. And as a kid, that is the funniest thing.
I remember Freakazoid. I saw it in Spanish though. It was back
then. I want to see El Freakazoido.
Wesley!
Just for reference, Maria's from El Salvador and Emily's from New Mexico.
Well, that doesn't make a difference, actually. You should explain that it's not that she's from New Mexico, it's that she's half Mexican because her mom... Not your mom, right?
Yeah, it's my mom.
It's your mom?
Yeah.
That she's from Mexico.
Oh, yeah.
So, that's completely... New Mexico and Mexico completely different.
But they speak the Spanish over there.
We had covered this area.
I just like to stir the shit.
No, but if you would like to know, in Spanish it wasn't Freakazoido, it was Fenomenoide. Like
What?
Phenomenoide. Like kind of like phenomenon.
Yeah.
But phenomenoide. Yeah.
I guess freakazoid is not easy to translate.
Not really to
into
translate.
Spanish.
And a lot of times they have to combine this like proper translation with fitting within like the allowed vocabulary, like the timeline.
Especially for that intro song.
Yeah, yeah, like something that would fit in with the song too, right?
Yeah.
So and that actually.
I want to see this now. I'm gonna go check it out later.
You can literally just look it up and YouTube. I'm pretty sure it'll pop up.
All right, well let's just give a general opinion of the film then. I say go watch it. It's good film, good sound, good animation, good acting. On the occasion, is the girl sort of acts a bit. Her voice acting's not convincing.
Well,
but
it's because
whatever.
it was done by an actual child.
Yeah, which
That's
I mean,
usually
the rest
the
of the
case.
film.
It was
Yeah.
the same for Paranorman.
Her acting is like really good everywhere except for the points where she's supposed to be like worried or scared. Like then she's then she's doing that thing where like as if you're trying to talk into a mic, but you're talking like you don't want to wake your neighbors up. You're like, no, don't go there, And I'm like, no, you could. let it out, someone's gonna die.
It's okay, kid. You're in a sound booth.
yeah. So, but other than that, that was like, I mean, I'd give this film like high marks. I would say go watch it, support it, get the film. If you're an animation fan, at least
Honestly,
buy the Blu-ray.
Overall, just support it simply because it's based
We want
on
more
an
of this.
amazing story, and it's always good to support others. And also as particular for animators, it's always better to support. Like the foreign films because otherwise we'll still be typecasted into this silly everything's Pixar, everything Disney, and only these movies are only nominated in the animation category in the Oscars because that's where the kids movies go. Like it shouldn't be. We're not
friggin' Oscars.
We're not a genre. We're an art form, and the only way to get this moving is also to respect say like the foreign market, like the French films and everything else. Anything that isn't like the typical thing you see everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I would even go so far as to say like in the Oscars, like animated movies should just be within like the like.
But that's the thing. What I find it odd is that I think it's hindered us to actually put the animation category in because before the animation category was in, like you had the phenomenon of the Beauty and the Beast. That got nominated for Best Film.
Oh, I forget about that.
And that wasn't because it was a Best Animated Film. It was because it was a good film that happened to be animated. I think we haven't been able to get to that point. And I find that The Little Prince is definitely that. A good story that happens to be animated for the purpose to facilitate like that world of that incredibly animated like and the imagination of that world.
You make a good point. I never thought about that. The idea that like we shouldn't separate animation from other films.
Yeah.
We should just see them as films.
Yeah.
But they're just animated.
Yeah, because then you have cases like you're trying to compare something like what won this year? Like the Pixar film that won this year or Disney film that won this year.
Inside Out.
Yeah, because it's always Pixar film and Disney or DreamWorks when there's no.
Oh yeah, I remember like reading like articles like of people saying like, oh, I didn't even watch that Chinese stuff, when they're talking about.
But
films.
you're comparing something like Inside Out with Anomalisa, and if you haven't seen Anomalisa, by the way, you should go watch it, and you should also watch it and review that one. This is incredibly interesting. I don't know how else to describe it. Interesting, but
give it a shot.
They're two different situations, and it's the same with this one. I definitely give it, despite the little shortcomings that it has here and there. Overall, it was very good. I think people should go watch it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Pretty much the same, huh?
Yeah, pretty much.
3 go watches, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's the wrap up for this. I don't know if you guys want to plug anything.
My usual neuroticartist.tumblr.com, neurostreet.deviantart.com.
Oh.
I'm drawing so much Undertale.
I need to re-update my
Well,
my blog before I can advertise it. The only thing I could tell you is that me and my friend Sarah have decided to get a table for Minikami.
Where's that?
It's at the community center in Falls Creek.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember when it's in June or July. I'm googling it right now.
Okay.
Sorry, artist mind
Well,
all over the place.
If you guys want to message us, theanonymousanimators or theanonymousanimators@gmail.com, and we've got a Tumblr too, theanonymators.
Animators.tumblr.com.
Tumblr.com.
Minikami Art Market 2016. It's gonna be July 16th, and the official address is One Athlete's Way in Olympic Village.
Okay, so July 16th, 2016.
If you're in Vancouver, that's where you're supposed to go.
Yeah, go check it out. And just to support local artists anyway.
Yeah, even if it's not for me, there's going to be plenty of other local artists either doing their own art or fan plushies. You know, there's a little bit of everything. It's cute.
My favorite.
It's free admission too.
Nice.
Frick
So,
yeah.
Let's do this.
Yeah.
All
And listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right. Good night, folks.
Later.